Thank you for coming out on this beautiful evening on the cusp of fall. I want to express my profound admiration and gratitude, not to turn this into like the typical, in many introductions, love fest, but to David Lehman, who's a wonder of the literary world, for giving me this opportunity. He was amazing to work with. I'd also like to thank his assistants, Stephanie and Mark, and everyone else who worked so hard on this volume and helped him. Hearty thanks to Robert Polito and the New School for sponsoring this event, and to Alexis Gargagliano and Scribners for publishing these anthologies. Last but not least, hats off to the 75 inspiring living and dead poets whose work appears in the anthology. I'm going to make very short remarks because we have one under a score of readers tonight, and I'm anxious to hear them all. The hardest part of co-editing this anthology was not making it a 100-volume encyclopedia. There are so many amazing poets in this room, on stage and off, all over the United States. My office was walled in with their poems, with magazines. My cat was sitting on them and shedding fur all over their work. So 75 poems, the magic limit for this anthology, actually turned out to feel to me like an incredibly tiny number, especially given the happy fact that, as David said, and in my view, American poetry is in exactly the opposite condition of our poor, battered economy. And just to say it in plain English, it was my experience that American poetry is rich, vital, beguiling, smart, packed with innovative and talented practitioners, but I'm sort of preaching to the choir because you're all at a poetry reading, so maybe you think so too. The images and themes that tended to crop up in this book, or a small sampling of them, are race, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the use of lithium and Zoloft, AIDS, presidential blackness, sex education, religious fundamentalism, divorce, condoms, new views of motherhood, prison, depression, end times, fidelity and its opposite number, infidelity, standardized tests, and I found afterwards something that I hadn't noticed before, that many poems feature breasts. I guess I'll have to talk to my analyst about that. So, without further ado, this is, and I get to stand in for a brilliant Irish gay man, so that's cool for me. James Schuyler, a poet who's sadly not with us any longer. This is his poem from the anthology, Having My Say-So, and this poem will be followed by Sandra Beasley. James Schuyler's Having My Say-So. What a sweet, dear, good boy he is, I said aloud to the empty room. I never expected to feel like Elizabeth Barrett Browning again. Not this soon. It's not so soon. Surely it's undignified for a gent to want to take another gent bouquets, and absurd. Just as surely I could not care less. Surely it's an incredible invasion of someone's privacy to sit around writing unsolicited poems to and about him. Well, as you know who would say, I'm sorry, but I just can't help it. I feel this way. Deeply. What kind of thing does a man say to a man he's in love with? Things like, I can't tell you how adorable you looked in your new suit and that tie the other night. Then he says, that suit is rather me, isn't it? And then I say, yes. And the world lights up like the hot star they say it used to be, or may become, burnt by the sun. It's still glowing. That's not my sleeve, that's my heart. Not less than any other lover who ever wrote, I want to describe his looks. The way his wide eyebrows uniquely die away in a haze of fine, short hairs on the east and west slopes of his forehead. The way they join in a tuft, a small explosion of longer hairs above his nose. The crinkled pink of a new scar, still touched by the recent black stitches. The fullness of his lower lip, like the excess that shaped the pair, sulky and determined, boyish and sweet, Greek, before they got refined. But if I'm such a lover, why can't I remember the color of his eyes? I know their movements, how they twinkle wickedly. Love is all about cliches. When he's silly drunk and cute, how animal and slitty they get when he's tired. I think they're the color of the sky, which is not always blue. Then there's his jaw that has a long bow curve to it, his hair curling on the nape, not silky or wiry, lively, and in a quick transition to a longer view, the thin-skinned, very naked whiteness of his back with muscles lapped and moving in it. His belly, firm as a flank, sprouting little curves like dune grass around the lake Nemi of his navel. Moon, look down and see the small dark pit of your reflection on this pale shaded plane of flesh. Heart, dream no further. Do you want to go off like rockets on the 4th at the Washington Monument? I must get back to work. But first, I'll look at the clock and imagine where he is. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Sandra Beasley. If I were up here because I thought I was one of the best American poets, I would be terrified. If I were up here because I thought I was one of the better American poets, I would be terrified. I would be waiting for the call of the Empress Has No Clothes, but I'm up here because of the capybara, surely one of the coolest creatures to roam this earth. And if you know it as the South American mammal that you might see at the zoo by the elephants and the hippos, wonderful. If you don't know it, picture the rodents of unusual size from the fire swamp in The Princess Bride. Unit of measure. All can be measured by the standard of the capybara. Everyone is greater than or lesser than the capybara. Everything is taller or shorter than the capybara. Everything is mistaken for a Brazilian dance craze more or less frequently than the capybara. Everyone eats greater or fewer watermelons than the capybara. Everyone eats more or less bark. Everyone barks more than or less than the capybara, who also whistles, clicks, grunts, and emits what is known as his alarm squeal. Everyone is more or less alarmed than a capybara, who, because his back legs are longer than his front legs, feels like he is going downhill at all times. Everyone is more or less a master of grasses than the capybara, or going by the scientific name, more or less Hydrochloris, Hydrochirus, or going by the Greek translation, more or less water hog. Everyone is more or less of a fish than the capybara, defined as the outermost realm of fishdom by the 16th century Catholic Church. Everyone is eaten more or less often for Lent than the capybara. Shredded, spiced, and served over plantains, everything tastes more or less like pork than the capybara. Before you decide that you are greater than or lesser than a capybara, consider that while the Brazilian capybara breeds only once a year, the Venezuelan variety mates continuously. Consider the last time you mated continuously. Consider the year of your childhood when you had exactly as many teeth as the capybara, 20, and all yours fell out and all his kept growing. Consider how his skin stretches in only one direction. Accept that you are stretchier than the capybara. Accept that you have foolishly distributed your eyes, ears, and nostrils all over your face. Accept that now you will never be able to sleep underwater. Accept that the fish will never gather to your capybara body, offering their soft, finned love. One of us, they say, one of us, but they will not say it to you. And next up, I'd like to welcome Mark Bivens.